Hey, I didn't see you there. Yeah, don't mind me, I'm just drowning my sorrows at the bar. Why? Ugh. It's a long story. Lately I've been talking a lot about the Saints Row reboot and how awful it looks. I've had some people tell me that I've been too negative about it, and to these people, I say, you just can't handle some truth bombs. Breaking news! The world isn't all sunshine and rainbows. On the contrary, we live in a corporate dystopia that's getting worse and worse with each passing day. But you know, in some ways, those folks are right. Recently, I've started to resemble the opposite of an antidepressant. There's only so many defenders of corporate scumbaggery a man can handle before he starts to lose faith in humanity. I decided that instead, I want to go back and play the game that made me fall in love with the series in the first place, so that I can make a retrospective on it. That game being Saints Row 1. But there's just one problem. You see, Saints Row 1 is an Xbox exclusive. And I don't have an Xbox. Ever since the disastrous Xbox One announcement all the way back in 2013, I've been avoiding that brand as if my life depended on it. You think I'm just going to forget about that always online nonsense you tried to pull, Microsoft? No, sir. Honestly, it's pretty ironic they called it the Xbox One, as in the end, I think only one person actually ended up buying it. Though it is pretty hilarious me saying that now, considering back in the ye olde console war days, I was a massive Xbox fanboy. Yeah, you know that one guy who set his gamer zone to pro while having this profile picture? Who, whenever you'd kill him, would send you a voice message that was just him saying,
"I'm gonna screw your mum."
Yeah, that was me. No, I said I don't have an Xbox, but what I really mean is a modern one. I still have my giant slab OG Xbox from back in the day, but that ain't gonna be running 360 games anytime soon. I do also in fact still have my old 360 too, but it's an ancient launch model from back in 2006 that probably hasn't been turned on in about a decade. And if I remember correctly, these sounded like a jet engine whenever you'd actually play anything on them. Yeah, needless to say, I'll pass. Bottom line is, if I want to play this game optimally, I'm going to have to get a new Xbox. Well, I mean, I could just use an emulator, but I think I'll pass. Well, lucky me then, as the laughable Xbox One that I protested for 7 years in a row has finally been scrapped to the dustbins of history where it belongs. And a new console generation has just begun. Alright, so let's see here. This time around there's two Xboxes. The Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. What a mouthful. I mean, what kind of a name is Xbox Series X anyway? Name has more X's than most adult movies. I mean, it's bad enough they thought it would be a good idea to give them an almost identical name to the consoles they launched just a few years prior. The Xbox Series X, not to be confused with the Xbox One X, of course. Oh, and the Xbox Series S, not to be confused with the Xbox One S, of course. Jesus Christ. You just know that some poor, technically illiterate mother is going to buy the One X for their son by accident, leading to the worst Christmas surprise in human history. Thank you, Microsoft branding department. At least with the PlayStation, the naming scheme actually makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Easy. Meanwhile, on Team Green, we went from 1 to 360, back to 1 again, and now to SX. Jesus Christ. But hey, there's more to a new console than its name. I've heard good stuff about this new generation of Xboxes. Game Pass looks like the best deal in gaming, and the hardware looks absolutely solid. No red ring of death or underpowered potato machines this time around. Looks like Microsoft has really learned their lesson this time. And you're telling me that I can use my old 360 disc to play the game too? I'm in. Well, should be a piece of cake then. Guess I'll just go to a store and order one, right? Nothing. I looked everywhere, but not a single store in the entirety of the UK had it. it was just completely sold out everywhere. I mean, look, I can understand having stock issues just after launch, but it's been almost a year now. So what's the deal? Well, let's look it up. Why the hell can't I buy an Xbox Series X? As it turns out, there are apparently two main reasons why. First, the chip shortage. Yeah, that's right. For the last year and a half, there's apparently been a massive shortage of Pringles. Yep, rumour has it that Steve Ballmer went on another one of his rampages again over at the Microsoft headquarters and stole all the food out the cafeteria, leading to Microsoft employees going on strike, refusing to work until their Pringle rations make a return. You know, with the state the world is in today, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me if that actually happened. But seriously, chip shortage as in silicon shortage. You've probably heard about it. Due to recent events, manufacturing has been hugely disrupted, leading to technology of all kinds, including the Xbox, being manufactured in much smaller amounts than they otherwise would have been. So, let's say in normal circumstances the Xbox would be at 100% manufacturing capacity. Currently, they're at about 50% instead. That's a number that I just completely pulled out my ass, but you get the idea. But that's not the only problem, as we also have scalpers. Background: you're an 18-year-old who comes from a poor family that got screwed over by globalization. As a result, you spend way too much time on the internet researching stocks in a desperate attempt to escape the eternal poverty that you've been sentenced to. So what do? Join a business class. Welcome to business class. What's Business 101, folks? Supply and demand. If a product has a high demand but a low supply, then cha-ching, the price of that product is going to skyrocket. To the moon! Enter the scalper. The first official dictionary definition of a scalper is a massive bell end. The second official dictionary definition of a scalper is someone who takes advantage of products that have high demand but low supply in order to generate a ton of moolah. In essence, what scalpers do is buy as many, let's say, Xbox Series X's as possible in order to resell them on sites like eBay for an extraordinarily high price. So do you remember that 50% capacity I was talking about earlier? Well, about 90% of that is being bought out by scalpers, leaving bugger all left for the people who actually, want one.
When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut.
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor.
When I grow up, I want to be the president.
When I grow up, I want to resell Xboxes on eBay.
Right. In fact, the Xbox Series X is so rarely on sale that in order to get one, I was recommended to join a stock tracking Discord server just for this reason alone. I've been in there for about 2 weeks now, and it's only been in stock twice. Twice! Even then, they sell out in, I am not joking here, less than 1 minute. So let's get this straight. In 2006, when I got my Xbox 360, it was as easy as just going to a store, buying it, and boom, done. Fast forward to 2021, and 10 months after the console has come out, you're expected to stay there next to your phone 24/7, desperately listening out for the once-a-week notification, whereby you must then battle with thousands of scalpers and their bot army in order to even have a chance of getting one in less than a minute. I mean, seriously, Microsoft has some nerve making a Halo limited edition Series X. As I hate to break it to them, but right now, the normal Series X is limited edition. Recently, I hit 1,000 subscribers, and that means that I can now make these things called community posts. And so, I thought that I would ask you guys a question. I asked, for those of you who wanted an Xbox Series X/PlayStation 5, have you managed to get a hold of one yet? And the results of this poll were actually quite interesting. 16% of people said, yeah, I got one a while back, whereas a whopping 25% of people said, nope, they're just never in stock. It says a lot when the vast majority of people still, a year after the consoles have come out, haven't been able to get their hands on one yet. Seems like it's not just me after all. But hang on a minute, Alex. 16% plus 25% is only 41%. What about the other 59%? Yeah. What about the other 59%? 59% of people, the majority, picked... Where's a brief history of Johnny Gat's Frosted Tips? Oh, you know who you are, and no, you're not having it. Seriously, at this rate, I'm never going to be able to play Stickman at 4K 60 frames per second. Oh. Wow, look what we have here. The Xbox Series X is in stock? Oh my, look, I can buy new Xbox Series X. Well, I think I'll do that right now. Oh. I mean, it's 2021, and the things we humans can do with technology these days is absolutely staggering. I was just laying about on Discord earlier, when all of a sudden, a friend of mine says,
Hey Alex, ever wondered what you'd look like if you were a woman?
and I was like, well, not really, Tyrion, but Jesus Christ, looks like a mix of me and Margaret Thatcher. Then he says,
Hey Alex, ever wondered what you'd look like as a granny?
and I'm like, no, Tyrion, not. Oh, Christ. The point I'm making is, we have the technology to do this, but somehow can't figure out a system of making sure that consoles aren't getting scalped after almost a year of being on the market. So, question is, who's to blame? Most people would say the scalpers, obviously, and yeah, these guys can sure be dodgy, or even at times, just absolute scammers. I heard stories last Christmas just after the new consoles launched of people buying so-called Xboxes on eBay, only to literally get a cardboard box with an X in it in the mail. Or hell, even worse, people buying a so-called PS5 only to get... I mean, what even is this? Imagine shelling out an extortionate amount of money to buy your son or daughter a great present for Christmas, only to get these in the mail. That, to me, is just pure evil. Even so, they are rare exceptions. Most scalpers are actually true to their word and will sell you what is advertised. For an absurd price, of course. Now don't think for a second that I'm defending scalpers here, but truth be told, I think blaming scalpers for scalping is like blaming someone in an FPS for using an overpowered gun. Don't blame the player, blame the game. I honestly think the folks to be blamed for this absurd situation is Microsoft and Sony. Imagine launching a new console generation in the middle of a global crisis during a massive silicon shortage. I mean, with all due respect, they must have known that surely they wouldn't have enough stock to go around. If you willingly create an environment whereby there is low supply while there's high demand, don't be too surprised when crafty entrepreneurs take advantage of such a disaster. Controversial opinion. I think the release of this console generation should have been delayed by an entire year, from Q4 2020 to Q4 2021. Allow me to present my case, Your Honour. Firstly, the consoles clearly weren't ready for release anyway. The PS5 had all sorts of bizarre problems at launch, and its flash storage extension took months to even be activated. The Xbox Series X, on the other hand, is smooth as butter, but when you have literally 0 games that are exclusive to the console, what is even the point of getting it in the first place? The Xbox Series X box literally has Master Chief on it, advertising Halo Infinite, a game that still, 10 months after launch, has still not even come out yet, and even still won't be complete when it does. For the last year, these consoles have mostly served as backwards compatibility enhancement machines. Never has there been such an unimpressive launch lineup for a console generation. It's almost as if both Microsoft and Sony just wanted to rush them out the door to take advantage of the market at the time. If they would have delayed the release by a year, not only would both of these companies had the time to develop their software launch lineup, but they would have been able to manufacture so many units in the meantime that when the consoles actually released, attempting to scalp them would have been a fruitless endeavour, as there would have been so many on the market that it wouldn't have made sense to even try. Contrary to popular belief, not every product gets scalped. Apple products, for example, hardly ever do, as Apple vigilantly ensures they always make enough of their products to go around. Nintendo products, on the other hand, pretty much always seem to, as Nintendo always never seems to make enough of anything. I suppose the point I'm trying to make is, we can blame scalpers as much as we want, but if anything, they are just a symptom of a problem, not ultimately the problem. I do hope no one mistranslates this into a "if I can't get one, then no one can" argument. To anyone who currently has a next-gen console, hats off to you. But that doesn't change the fact that this is the worst start to a console generation ever. And this nightmare situation could have easily been avoided. If you want an example of a console launch done right, take a look at the Steam Deck. Valve required that to order one, you had to have had a Steam account before the console was announced. So, unless you already had a ton of Steam accounts lying around for no reason, scalping this would have been borderline impossible. It's a safe assumption that the people who would want an Xbox Series X or PS5 the most at launch would have been the people who already owned their last-gen equivalents. So, would it really have been that absurd to make it a requirement that they were only available to buy to those who already had a relatively active Xbox Live or PSN account, at least to start with? Let's say that the consoles would have been launched in September 2021 instead, for already established members only. Millions would have been able to get their consoles hassle-free directly from the manufacturers. After a while, in say October 2021, they could have come out normally for everyone else, tied to one per card and address, whereby folks would have had just enough time to get them for Christmas. After which, such restrictions would be lifted. Because of the members-only buying period and the temporary security requirements, the demand for the console would be significantly lower, and due to the year-long delay, the supply of the consoles would be significantly higher, making scalping an ultimately fruitless endeavour. Look, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here. All I know is that this situation is ridiculous. I've never been in a situation whereby I've had the money to buy something, but I can't because it's not been in stock for a year. This is where I'd put my Xbox. If I had one. At this point, I might just be forced to buy the Xbox Series S out of desperation. That thing is in stock everywhere, mostly as no one wants it. Yeah, I know, first world problem, and I guess there's no point really crying over spilled milk. But I wonder, will these corporations learn from launching blatantly unfinished and underprepared products during a global crisis in order to sate their insufferable greed via short-term profits? Or will they just continue to make terrible decisions, time after time, so long as it makes their wallets fatter? I think we all know the answer to that one.